Hey, everyone. Welcome to Crafting for Profit Live, episode 13. Today, we are talking about HTV, also called heat transfer vinyl or iron on vinyl. In this episode, we're talking about how you can use HTV to launch your craft business without having to spend a lot of money. You can ask questions in the chat if you're here joining us on YouTube Live. We will be taking questions that are applicable to what we're talking about. If you have questions that are something else you want to ask Corey or Angie, you can go ahead and leave those. There is a link down in the description of both the video and the podcast. There is a link to leave us questions.
Now, hopefully, we said this is episode 13. Hopefully, this is not your first episode. Hopefully, you are loving Crafting for Profit Live. And the best thing you can do to support us is to rate and review the podcast. If you're listening on a podcast platform, head down, give us some stars, and even type a little review. We love reviews. We love to read them. If you're watching on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and be sure to follow our YouTube channels because that supports us as well. So now our special guest is Jen Kerton from Creative Housewives. So Jen has grown the Crafty Housewives Instagram to over 85,000 followers, and she teaches people how to use their Cricut machines. So she is the perfect guest for our HTV episode. So Jen, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hi, I'm Jen Kerton, and I have been a blogger for over 13 years now. My sister and I have a blog we started over 13 years ago. Crafty Housewives used to be Housewives of Riverton Housewives, whatever you want to call it, back in the day when, the housewives were everywhere thing. And started out just kind of, I feel like a lot of people do with blogging. It was a way to keep in touch with our family that wasn't nearby and also just share the things we were doing. We were both home with a lot of kids. I have 7 kids. My sister has 6 kids. So between us, we lived close, thankfully. We were just 5 houses away from each other, but we were also kind of like in our own little bubbles, like moms, lots of kids, little kids. And so that gave us like a creative outlet that we didn't really have. And took a break for a little while. I actually worked for Cricut for a while and did a lot of teaching people how to use their Cricut machines on Facebook Lives and things like that, and learned that I really like teaching people how to make things. Like, that was so fun for me. And it wasn't something that I knew, because sometimes, like, when you're blogging, you're like talking to no one, and so doing that on Cricut, where they have like such a big audience and stuff, and getting that in, it was like talking like we are right now. You had people that were like asking questions and doing things and stuff. And so so that was really fun. And so then I moved, and so I quit working at Cricut and have just been doing more. And so we've recently started taking our crafting stuff and moving it from Creative Housewives over to Crafty Housewives. So we're the same people in both places. We're just trying to make it easier for people to find what they're looking for. So if you like all the things, like mom things and Disneyland things and recipes and stuff like that, Creative Housewives is where you want to be. If you want to see just the crafty stuff, Crafty Housewives is where you should be hanging out with us.
All right. I love that. Let's start our questions. Can you start by just explaining what HTV is and why it's a popular choice for beginner crafting businesses?
Okay, yes. So HTV, heat transfer vinyl. I feel like that kind of makes sense. You need heat to transfer it. It activates the adhesive on it. I think the reason why it was attractive to me is it's all in one. I remember really being frustrated with vinyl, like having to work with transfer tape and vinyl, and I feel like there's more of a learning curve there. And so with heat transfer vinyl, the carrier sheet's already on it. You just weed it off of that. Everything's on there. I feel like I always tell people, I'm like, if you're scared of your Cricut machine, do an HTV project, like do an iron-on project. And there are so many inexpensive presses out there now, but you really can do it with an iron. There are different steps you're going to want to take and stuff to do it, but it is something that you can do with things that you just have at home. You don't really have to go out and buy everything to get started. And it's not very expensive. And the things that you have to put it on are not very expensive. And so you can like mess around, and I mean, our kids will wear anything, right? Like, I'm going to try this. Wear it camping. Who cares if it's, crooked or whatever? Like, I just think it's really fun.
I would completely agree. I feel like when I first got started with my Cricut, it still is probably my favorite Cricut material just because it's easy to do and you can make stuff so quickly. So, yes, I have a sublimation printer and a DTF thing and all the other things, but those all cost a lot of money, right? With a tiny Cricut and an iron, I could make kids' shirts for, school spirit day or whatever it is. And I feel like that's so accessible. It's just so much more accessible than other types of crafts.
Totally agree.
And you can even keep it simple. Like when I first started with HTV, I kept it simple and I would just you could cut little heart shapes out of HTV with scissors and you can iron them onto different surfaces. So you can keep it simple just to give it a try, which I like. And then you're going to be hooked and you're going to want a Cricut machine. So you'll just kind of snowball from there. So that kind of goes into the next question. What are the essential tools and materials a beginner needs to start working with HTV?
Okay, so I'm going to say essential tools are you're going to want a cutting machine. Like Angie said, you can cut simple things out with your scissors. I was such a frugal crafter in the beginning. I remember when I would weed away the stuff that I didn't need, I would save those pieces and totally cut out little hearts. I remember adding my daughter got a hole in her leggings. And so I added a heart that I just cut out by hand and stuck it over the knee of it to cover up the hole and stuff. But, so you're gonna want a cutting machine to do anything more than a heart or a square. You're gonna want a cutting machine, but you really can use any cutting machine. You can use the Cricut Joy, very small, inexpensive, and still be able to cut out lots of different things with it. You're going to want a weeding tool that is going to be your friend. And then you need a heat source. So we're talking about business stuff. I would say as a business owner, you are going to want an actual press. But if you are just looking at getting started with HTV, you can use an iron. I highly stress you don't ever use your ironing board. I remember when I first started, it just made sense. I was using an iron, I would do it on my ironing board, everything would look great. And then I would wash it and it would start to lift. And it really is a pressure thing. So no matter what type of press you're using, an easy press or an iron, you want to have a solid surface. So whether that's your table, you can put it on your hardwood floor if you need to, just put a towel down underneath it, just get a lot of pressure. But you don't need a lot to get started. And then you need something to put it on. And the great thing about HTV is you can put it on so many different things. You don't have to have a certain fabric type. You don't have to have a certain fabric color. You can put it on things that aren't even fabric, which we may talk about that. I don't know if we'll go that deep today.
All right. I'm sorry, guys. My throat is a little rough today. Can you walk us through the design process for an HTV project from idea to final product?
Yes. So I would say the first thing you want to think about when you're starting an HTV project is the amount of adhesive that you're going to have. So I see a lot of people with both regular vinyl and heat transfer vinyl trying to cut these really tiny, intricate things, and they do look really cool. But you just have to think about how little adhesive is holding that on. When you cut those really fine lines, that's just not a lot of adhesive to stick it to what you're sticking it to. And so I always, when I'm doing things with vinyl or HTV, I just think about the size, the amount of adhesive that's going to be on it, and how difficult it might be to weed. So some people really love weeding things and some people really don't. And if you are not someone who loves weeding, you're going to get frustrated really quick if you try to cut out something that is just super intricate and really when you're worrying the whole time about it lifting something that you don't want. So that's the first thing that I would say when you're talking about a design, is that you want to make sure that it is something that has enough adhesive on it that it can really stick to your base material. So then you're going to use your Cricut machine. You're going to, whether your design's already in Design Space or you upload it in Design Space, you're going to use your Cricut machine and you're going to cut it out. You do need to make sure that you mirror your image when you cut it out. I'm pretty sure 99% of HTVs these days have their own carrier sheet. And so when you're laying it on your cutting mat, you're laying it so that the adhesive side is up. So you want to have that mirrored so that it lays right. This is especially important if you have any letters, numbers, anything like that that's going to read backwards. Then you're going to weed it. And then this process of applying HTV is actually really simple. You want to make sure that your material is clean. We always use a lint roller. So make sure your material is clean. Make sure that you preheat it. Vinyl, or HTV, just like sublimation, like moisture is the enemy of it. If you have moisture in your shirt and you can think it is completely dry, I promise you there is moisture in it. So you're going to want to press it. And most every press that you use will tell you or every material that you use is going to say pre-press for 5 seconds, pre-press, whatever. You can pre-press for however long you want. You're just getting the moisture out. If you still see steam coming up, keep pressing a little bit longer. So you're going to preheat it and then locate your design, put it where you want it, and press for the time that is recommended. If you are using like the Cricut Easy Press, there is the Cricut heat guide that will tell you exactly, like, you put in what press you're using, you put in the material that you're using. So if you're using like glitter or HTV or everyday, whatever you're using, and then the material. So if it's 100% cotton, whatever, and it tells you you're going to press at 315 degrees for 30 seconds. And if you follow the steps on that, you really can't mess up, because it tells you like pre-press it, like it walks you through all of the different steps. And then, you want that firm surface that you're pressing on, press for the full amount of time that it says. And then once upon a time, recently, apparently, Cricut stopped recommending that you press from the back, which is the strangest thing in the world to me, because like we beat that into people like you would not believe, and I still believe it makes a difference. When you press from the back, you're just really helping that adhesive get stuck from both sides. So I still recommend that. I don't really care if Cricut does or not.
I still say with an easy press or anything handheld, pressing from the back is going to give you a better result. Now with a heat press, I wouldn't, but with an easy press,
I even feel like with the auto press, like, because you just said, like, I mean, an actual, like those clamshells or those that you get that really tight, you're probably fine. But I just still recommend it. I just think that it does make a difference. And then the last thing that you need to be paying attention to, again, if you're using a Cricut stuff, it tells you, I'm sure other ones tell you as well. I just use Cricut more than anything else, but it tells you if it's a cool peel or a warm peel. And the thing you need to know is there is no hot peel. People might say that, even if it's a warm peel, even if you read something that says hot peel, you need to let it set for a second so that adhesive has a chance to stick to the fabric. If you try to, it doesn't matter how great you got it pressed down. If you try to pull that carrier sheet away while it's still really hot, oh, sorry, we're getting thumbs ups. You are going to lift that material up. Like, it's just going to happen. And then it's just recommended to wait 24 hours before you wash it or anything, and then just follow the washing instructions.
And that cool peel, that is a cold peel. Like,
yes, yeah,
Cricut HTV is a cold peel.
Yes, especially if you're using anything that is like the foil or the like shimmer, things like that. I feel like you will see every wrinkle of peeling off that carrier sheet if you don't let it get completely cold. And it really doesn't take long. I just always remove it from wherever I pressed it. So if I like pressed it on my auto press, I move it over to my table, and that helps take the heat out really quickly. It's not like you have to wait 20 minutes or anything like that. It's pretty quick.
I'll recommend a DTF cooling block. It can be your best friend. It's super inexpensive on Amazon. Run that cooling block over the HTV, and it really pulls the heat out. So I use it for not just DTF, but just about everything.
That's awesome. I don't have one of those yet, so I'm going to have to.
I have used, because I don't have one, I have gone and gotten a sublimation tile and actually just used that, and it actually pulls the heat out really quickly.
Yeah.
So any kind of tile. But one thing I was going to say about the peeling is there are very few things that also just can't be peeled cold, right? Like almost everything, if it says warm peel, you can still peel it cool. Like you don't have to peel it warm. I know that the one thing that I think I've seen that really only works when you have to peel it pretty darn warm is when you do HTV on metal. It just doesn't work as well when you do it with a cold peel, but almost everything else you can just wait until it's cold. And honestly, half the time I think that's better anyway.
Well, and I think the other thing, I mean, we're kind of getting in the weeds here, but if you're layering, HTV, then like you're going to press that first one for like half the time. And then if you're pressing right on top of HTV, HTV sticks to HTV really, really well. And so that you can just kind of peel up and get off there pretty quick because you're pressing for like 5 seconds. It's really quick. And so that's probably the only other time that I've been like, didn't really have to worry about it. But getting that adhesive to stick to fabric can be a little bit tricky. And just to throw out there, if you're ever like getting frustrated, you're like, I have pressed and pressed and pressed, and this is not sticking to this shirt. There's 2 things. One, you might need to wash your shirt first. Sometimes when you buy like a brand new shirt, it has, I think it's called sizing, right? Like it's like this weird stuff that they put on it to make it feel soft, to make it feel like all those things. And so that can affect the adhesive sticking. The other thing is you can overheat your adhesive. And so if you press it too much, you may have pressed the adhesive right out of it, which stinks to think about, but it really can happen. So practice, always try something little first, get the hang of it, and you'll be fine.
And your HTV can also expire. That's another
Yes.
thing. Like old HTV won't stick either. So after a while, like go through your craft room. Like it's just not worth it to save super old product because
Really cute, but
I mean, it may look really cute, but honestly, it's like not going to work, right? And so that might be another problem. If you're trying to press really old HTV, it may not stick very well.
for sure.
All right. So next question then. There are many types of HTV on the market. So many different types. We talked about foil. We haven't even mentioned like holographic, mosaic. I mean, just so many different types and brands. So how do you choose the right one for your project? And then if you're a beginner, like how do you go about selecting between like all the different options?
First of all, I'm going to say if you're really scared about getting started with HTV, buy a roll of glitter HTV. It is the most forgiving. I have never, ever failed with glitter HTV. It sticks every time. It doesn't get like wrinkly looking because it's got that texture and stuff to it already. And it sticks forever. It is just like you can't go wrong with it. So that's one thing. There are so many different things out there. I think you probably, if it were me, I would start with a well-known brand, and that there are a few of them, but I feel like you may get frustrated if you buy like this big bundle that's super inexpensive off of Amazon, or you hit your local craft store and maybe they have like their own brand or whatever. And you're just like, oh, it doesn't weed very easily, or it doesn't, like, they're different things. Personal experience here, I have always had good luck with Cricut. I know that people love other brands and stuff. I have had great luck with Cricut just by following like their steps and their recommendations. I am one to really like take advantage of a sale. And so like, I know people don't like prices, and I just don't ever try to buy anything full price ever. And so I feel like that helps, but there are things out there. You want to use the right material for your base material. So if you're doing like leggings or like a really stretchy fabric, make sure that the HTV that you're using has some stretch to it. And so like Cricut has their Sport Flex that works really well on those types of things. And I think like as you learn, you're going to have like your favorite things, and people will say this is better or this is better. And sometimes I want to say it's like a Canon and a Nikon. It's just what works well for you. And the best product is going to be the one that you follow the instructions on and actually do what it says, and not just think you know what you're supposed to be doing. But we could probably do an entire other episode on different just types, not even brands of HTV. And so I'm just going to stick with, I wouldn't try anything like super specialty to begin with. Glitter, I don't feel like is super specialty because I feel like it's so easy to use. So outside of that, if it were me, I would use something that's well known, which reminds me, Corey and Angie just told me about this other brand that they like. And so I just got to try it. This is like probably maybe only the second time I've ever not used Cricut. And I was really impressed with this HTV. So it's the B Flex, right? B Flex Gimme 5. Is that I'm trying to remember off the top of my head.
Yes.
Yep.
Anyway, first of all, like if you have like a delicate material, it has a really low temperature, which is awesome. And it's so fast, like so fast. it's really cool. So I would also now recommend that one because I really enjoyed using it.
Yeah, so I've had luck with various brands. And I will say, every time I've done an HTV comparison and I order those deals off Amazon, that's like 99 sheets for 99 cents or something, those are always the bottom ones that fail. Every test. And it doesn't matter if I'm doing like puff or regular or whatever, every single time that's the one that fails for me. So I just stay away from those ridiculously low priced ones because I feel like it just leads to frustration. And I mentioned puff for a reason because definitely don't start with something so specialty as puff because a lot of those puffs, foils, I feel like they have a huge learning curve as well. So I never recommend people to start with those. But yeah, so the brands, I mean, I'll agree with you. I feel like I've had good luck out of Cricut. A lot of people don't. Caesar brands are always good for me. And then you mentioned the B-Flex Gimme 5, and I'm in love with that one just because of the like low temp, low time, and I can just put it on anything.
Yeah. I think another one we didn't mention is the dollar store. People buy HTV at the dollar store. Probably not good for your business. Good for your bottom line, but not super high quality. It's going to be similar to the cheap brands you get on Amazon. So I would definitely start with a high quality brand. Yes, you are paying a little bit more for it, but you're not going to have unhappy customers who are like, my shirt didn't even survive one wash, or you can't get it to stick, or any of those things.
Yes, this is like crafting for profit. If you're going to use HTV to start a business, you are going to want to choose that HTV carefully. Something high quality, something that's going to last, something that's going to stick well. Follow all of the directions. So each HTV brand is going to be different. Whatever brand you choose, like you are listening to this, you're watching other YouTube videos, whatever brand you choose, be sure to follow the directions with it. So we mentioned the B-Flex Gimme 5. So it's a 285 degrees and it's about 4-second press. I feel like it's 4 seconds if you're on a heat press. On the easy press, that means you like 6 to 8 seconds. It's super fast as well. So low temperature, low time, and fast is something that makes it good for business reasons. So when you're thinking about starting a business with HTV, think about the brand and what benefits it brings as far as business wise, and make sure that you're starting somewhere where you get high quality and it's super fast as well, which is another benefit.
Yeah, if you have to sit there, with your easy press, if you don't have a heat press that has like an auto open feature or something like that, you have to sit there with your easy press for 30 seconds with, other brands of vinyl. Sitting there for, 6 seconds is way faster. So it's just one of those things where you can make more with that Gimme 5. I really, really like it. It's really soft too. So I'm really impressed.
And so my favorite part of the Gimme 5 is the weird surfaces. Like I always use it for wood, leather, anything I think I'm going to burn. Have you ever had something you want to put HTV on and you think I'm going to burn the material at 300 degrees or whatever temperature it is? I always reach for it for all of those weird surfaces. Wood, because I don't want to pull the sap out of it. If you've ever done a wood project and the sap comes through the paint, if I use the B-Flex Gimme 5, it like never happens to me. I can get the HTV on the wood without all those issues.
I've used it on cardstock, which I think is a fun application for HTV that a lot of people don't know you can do it. But I feel much better putting a piece of cardstock under a 285-degree plate than I do at like a 325-degree plate. It's not that much, but I'm like, this feels just less flammable.
Yeah, flammable things, not good. All right, so now you're wondering, where can we get this amazing B-Flex Gimme 5 HTV, right? Because we have an exciting announcement. First, for podcast listeners. So we are actually selling the B-Flex Gimme 5, and we have a special bundle. We're calling it our Crafting Camps HTV bundle, and it's for sale now. So it is a bundle of 6 12 by 12 sheets of B-Flex Gimme 5, and Corey and I chose those together. Fun, exciting colors. And we are giving you 9 SVG files with that bundle with a commercial license. So you get the 6 sheets of B-Flex Gimme 5 so you can give it a try, and 9 files to try it as well. And you can get it at link.craftingcamps.com/HTV. And that's link.craftingcamps.com/HTV. And for you on YouTube, I did put a QR code up in the corner so you can scan that.
And we have it really reasonably priced, extra low price, just for the first, I think it's like 9 days of this month. The price will go up just a little bit. It's not going to be super high price if you want to get it after this time. But for the first 9 days of this month, you can get it for $14.99. You get 6 full 12 by 12 sheets of HTV, and you get all those SVGs. We're really excited. We've been trying this out. We love it, and we're really excited to add like a few physical products to our crafting camps line of things.
So coming soon, there are a ton of colors of this product. We picked our 6 favorites for this special bundle deal, but there's a ton of other colors, and we will be selling those in our shops as well. So stay tuned for more on that.
All right, let's get back to our questions. Although I could talk about this HTV all day because it's very awesome. So what are some common mistakes beginners make when starting with HTV, and like how do they avoid them?
I think some of the common mistakes is we've talked about it quite a bit. Like before you start, read the instructions. Like number one, just read the instructions. I know that like oftentimes we think we know what we're doing. Oh, I've done this before. Don't just assume that you know what you're doing. I always tell people, I'm like, if you follow, speaking specifically of Cricut again, if you follow the heat guide and if you follow the steps in Design Space, they like hold your hand going through each of these things. It's like, did you remember to, like, it tells you, did you remember to mirror your design? Like when you pick HTV material or infusible ink, things like that, it reminds you to mirror your design. And then like it walks you through all those things. So I think that just like reading through, making sure that you actually do know what you're doing and not like read through all of it, not just the next step, because sometimes you're like, oh, I'm going to do this. And it's like, oh, wait, I wasn't supposed to do that quite yet type thing. I also think like if you're using an iron, like you're just starting out and you're using an iron, you need to be aware of like the cold spots on your iron. An iron heat plate is not going to be the same as if you were using even an easy press or a heat press, whatever, that you won't have that consistent heat. And then for sure, making sure that you have a like solid surface. So if you're using an iron, if you're using an easy press, you're going to like press down, you're going to hold it until that time is up. So if you're using an iron, you can't be doing this. Like this is not how you iron HTV. You set it down, you hold it in place and you press it and then you lift it up and then you press the next area. And you just need to make sure that you're hitting all of those spots with the hot part of your iron. If you're using a easy press or a heat press, I think it's a matter of like making sure if you're like, this is frustrating, it's not pressing, whatever, make sure that your temperature is correct and that you are pressing for the full amount of time, that you're doing those things, preheating it, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's the number one thing, is making sure that you're following the directions for the material that you're using. Also, I think another thing that's frustrating for people is that like when they have lifting, because they've like layered something, and you need to be aware that only some HTV materials can be a base layer. Like your foils, your holographics, your glitters, patterns, for most brands are a top layer only. And so you can't layer them on top of each other. I one time tested it. I'm just going to put this out there. I tested it one time. I wanted this really cute like firework shirt, and I layered foil on top of foil. It looked awesome. I had to repress that thing every time I washed it because it would just like peel up. But I'm like, I can't even get mad because they tell me that foil is not a base layer. Like it's and so that can be frustrating. Like I took a chance. I knew I was doing something wrong, but just know it will likely lift if you do that wrong. And then the other thing I would say is not following the washing instructions. You don't want to like, I kind of am known for just like throwing my stuff in the washer and the dryer. But I personally, like my clothing, I wash on delicates and I dry on delicates. Like I don't wash and dry my stuff at a high heat. And so I can do that. You wouldn't want to throw them in with a load of towels because that is going to be hotter water and a hotter drying temperature. And so most of the time, like if I was selling it, I would tell people to turn it inside out, wash it on cold, and hang it to dry. And then if any ironing is needed, turn it inside out and iron from the back. But I feel like those are kind of like the mistakes that people make, is like not following the directions, not knowing exactly how, maybe, like laying it out, like things like that. So I just think if you just like start small, really learn the product that you're using, I think it cuts out so much frustration.
I would completely agree. Somebody mentioned also cutting on the wrong side, so not putting it on your mat correctly. Absolutely a big problem, especially if you're cutting something that is different than normal. So is it
Mhm.
puff? I think puff feels like it should go the other way, right? Your brain is like shiny side down and puff is shiny side up. And your brain is just, especially if you've done a lot of HTV, your brain does not want to make that work. So yeah, cutting on the wrong side. And then obviously there's forgetting to mirror.
Yes.
Forgetting to mirror is one of those, I mean, every single person who's used HTV has forgotten to mirror something, and you don't really know it until you go to weed it. And then you're like, oh no, especially if it's like a big complex design and you've wasted your vinyl and there's just there's no coming back from that.
And it's not like you're not exempt because you know what you're doing. Like, I
Right.
think that's going to get you in more trouble than anything else, is just thinking you know what you're doing. And if we just like don't use our brain, just read what it tells you to do, then that cuts out a lot. I will say the one way that HTV is maybe a little bit more forgiving if you cut it on the wrong side is it is very unlikely it's cutting through that carrier sheet. And so you may still be fine to flip it over. And like, I know one time I had a friend that I was helping and she had put it down wrong, and we were like, she's like, it's not cutting. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, well, you don't have it on there, right? But it did not clear that carrier sheet's just, I mean, it's firm enough to keep the heat out. So apparently it's firm enough to keep the blade out as well.
I feel like I've been doing this a long time and I still forget to mirror. So it's not like these problems are not going to go away. You are still going to forget things from time to time. So for me, I do like that with HTV you can remove it. I've had various success with it, but a lot of times you can remove it off a shirt. So if you put it on the wrong spot, it's crooked, something like that. A lot of times you can heat it from the back and get it to peel up. There are HTV remover products that you can use to get it off. And so with sublimation, when I make a mistake, I mean, that thing is done. But with HTV, when I make a mistake, I can at least try to salvage it and get a good product out of it, or something at least I can wear. Maybe I can't sell it, but yeah, I feel like it's a little more forgiving than sublimation because you can get it off there and try again.
Well, and you can like press like over the top of it again if you needed to. Like, I like that also. If you're just like, oh, this area is lifting, it's way more forgiving than sublimation if you have to like press down again, where with sublimation you're like, how do I line this up so I don't get the area that I already pressed? And I'm sure we've all done it, the loss of like the dots to your eyes, like it. So then it's like you're going back through and having to press again. And so that is, I mean, I guess you don't have to worry about losing the dot to your eye on a sublimation project, but I do like the ability of being able to repress also.
I do think it's a more forgiving thing for beginners.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned care instructions being something that a lot of people do wrong. And I was just going to say that if you are selling HTV products, you are going to start a business with HTV products, print care tags or put a label on each shirt in the back with HTV or something to have a care tag. Do something to communicate those care instructions to your customer so they will be happy with the product, because what they're going to do is they're going to throw it in with their towels, like Jen was talking about. They're going to use hot water, they're going to use high heat, it's going to fall off, and they're going to blame you instead of what they did to it once they got it. So be sure to include those care instructions when you sell your product with HTV. For sure. Or anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like HTV, it's different than vinyl, but a lot of that stuff kind of is the same. Like, I wouldn't want to soak an HTV project for an extended period of time. Like, I wouldn't want to leave it soaking in things. I feel like adhesives just break down, right? Like, it doesn't matter if it's a heat activated one or not. And so, like we would tell people if they put vinyl on a glass, don't soak it in a sink full of water. I would say the same thing about an HTV shirt. Like, don't soak it in hot water. Like, adhesive is adhesive.
All right, next question on the business topic. So if we're talking about businesses, what are some of the initial costs that people are going to have to invest to get started with the HTV business? And how can they kind of budget and do this whole thing on a budget if we're talking about starting a business on a budget?
So the really cool thing about HTV, I feel like, is if you're a crafter, you may already have everything that you need, right? Like, I feel like most people that want to start a crafting business, is because they have found that they enjoy crafting. And so if that's you, you may already have everything. But there are also ways to inexpensively get started. Like I said before, you need a cutting machine. It can be the Cricut Joy. Get started. Like you can get a machine for, what is the Cricut Joy, like $149 now, something like that, and then on sale sometimes for less. So it is not an expensive machine. And same thing with a press. If you're doing a business, I would highly recommend don't use an iron. Just don't do it. There are inexpensive presses out there. The Easy Press, there's a variety of different sizes that you can get of that. There are inexpensive heat presses that you can get. I would make sure like you're getting something that's trusted. I feel like just like there is a lot of vinyl out there, there's a lot of presses out there that like it feels like they're promising you the moon, and then people are like getting no help, or the instructions are all coming in a different language and they're like, I have no idea how to even like find where to turn the temperature on or whatever. So I would say the same thing there. Like you're going to want, for a business, you're going to want quality stuff. But the thing that's cool about like HTV stuff is that you can start with those smaller things. You can be like, okay, I want to create a few things. So I'm getting the 9x9 Easy Press and I'm getting the Cricut Joy or the Cricut Joy Extra. And I'm going to start making this product, you know, baby onesies or school shirts for elementary school aged kids. And those are well within like size restraints for those things with no problem. And then once your business like starts selling and you start, then you can be like, okay, now I'm ready to, I will say there are people out there that will buy your old Cricut machine and your old Easy Press. So if you're like, I'm ready to move up, I need a bigger machine, then you've got your Cricut Joy or your Cricut Joy Extra. Sell that, use that money plus a little bit of money from your business. Same thing with the presses. And then you want good product, right? Like, so you want a nice quality t-shirt, but even Michael's and Hobby Lobby and places like that have sales regularly. Like they just had, one of the stores just had t-shirts for like $2.99 a t-shirt. And so I would say that's the other thing is like, don't overbuy just because it's on sale. Like, don't be like, oh, I'm going to buy 300 shirts. And then you're like, I have sold 3. And then you have all this stuff and you spent your money on that. So like, you don't want to do that. But pay attention to those sales. And then that's saving you money. You don't have to be pricing your product based on that sale price, right? You want to price your product as if you had to pay full price for it or what you could buy it again for. And so, so I think that like, those are the things that I do is I'm like, I look for sales. I do stock up a little bit. Like if you know, like, hey, I sold 20 shirts for back to school last year and this was the color t-shirt that I used and whatever else, you know, like you can be like, okay, I'm going to prep again for that while they have them on sale. Keep your receipts, return things you don't need. I mean, I just like, I feel like it's pretty forgiving to start with because the things are readily available. Like you can run to the craft store and buy another roll of iron-on and you can run to the craft store and buy another t-shirt. And so you don't need to be putting out a ton of money right up front.
Angie and I talk about it a lot too, that Bella Canvas has a, their maker's account, which, means that you can order wholesale pricing, but you don't need a reseller license. If you're running a small business, you might want to get that reseller license. Angie and I both did it recently. It was 1,000 times easier than either of us had made it up to be in our heads. So it took me like 10 minutes and they were like, approved. Oh, well, why did I wait so long? But with the Bella Canvas Makers Program, you don't even need that reseller license. And then you can get those Bella Canvas garments, which a lot of people really love. They're so soft. They come in a bajillion colors and a bajillion styles. So that's another really good resource for blanks.
And then over time, like we're talking about the investment as beginning with HTV, but over time you can just change this up. So maybe you get a different heat press that auto opens and that saves you time and you make your products faster. And then you dive into sublimation shirts because you can now invest in a printer. So you can start with this HTV business and then grow over time. Bigger Cricut machine, better heat press, sublimation printer. Wherever you want this business to grow, you can sort of invest your profit back into it and start small, but grow big.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that you guys have talked about. I know at least one other time, but that it's like you need to be prepared to be taking any money that you make in the beginning and putting it back into your business. This is not something that you're like, today I made all this money, and it's, like, that's going to happen every single day. That's not always going to happen every single day. And so you do want to take that money and put it back in. And I think that the thing that you need to think about also is that things that seem more expensive, we've talked about this a bit, but they save you money in the long run. So buying an HTV that's a well-known brand and it sticks well and it performs the way that it's supposed to perform after it's washed is going to save you money over having to remake a shirt for somebody because it lifted the first time that they washed it, or it didn't stick and you're using twice as much material to make one shirt. And so, and that's like with anything, like saving time saves you money, number one, but it can, like, taking that little bit of time to read the instructions and to make sure that you know what you're doing and stuff can also save you material in the long run. And then, I know you guys have talked about it with like sublimation and other things and stuff, but like having something that you can test on and like really be like, okay, I know the cut setting for my machine. I know exactly, so that it cuts clean through and that I don't have any like jagged edges or whatever. And I have, if you mess up a shirt, save it, press onto that shirt a few more times so that you can be like, okay, this temperature, this time works really well. And I'm running it through the wash and it's holding up. And I feel like you need to put in that work when you're starting a business. You want to wash a shirt that you've made 30 times so that you can be like, hey, I washed it 30 times and this is still what it looks like. And so your shirt, if you wash it correctly, like if you can tell your customers, like, I've tested this, you're not going to come at me and be like, it came off in one shirt and then tell me that you washed it right. Like you can be like, no, here's my example. And it's been washed 30 times. And so I think that, and then I would do your research on what the HTV brand promises with their HTV. I think, I haven't even looked recently. I think Cricut, they have like their guarantee. It's the strong bond guarantee, that if you follow like their process, that your shirt should last 50 washes. And so, or your materials, whatever it is. And so I would, you want to use a brand that's standing behind their brand like that, if that makes sense. Like it's because then it should hold up to what they're saying.
I feel like if you do something like in person, like a craft fair, having a shirt you've washed 30 times just hanging up is like such a good idea. That's like proof of concept, right? Like, here, look, you can actually see it. You can come up, you can feel it. I washed it, on cold, didn't dry, just like my care instructions say, and look how good it looks.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
All right. Question number 7. What are some effective ways to market and sell HTV products for those just starting out?
So I think one of the things is wear your product and don't be afraid to talk about it. Like, I think that's, I think it was, I always say her name wrong, Jamila, was it, that was talking about how like she started out making things for like local for her school and stuff. I think if you can do something like that, that is a great local marketing, right? Like put your kids in it, put your husband in it, put whoever, like your family members and stuff, put it in it with all the information that they need to have. Where did you get it? How do you find it? And like, when I say like, don't be afraid to talk about it, that is such a hard thing. I don't know about you guys. Like, it's so easy to like minimize and be like, oh, I just make shirts. Oh, I just do this. Oh, but when people see like, oh, you made that shirt for your family reunion. Could you make a shirt for my, kid's birthday party or for whatever that might be? I think that that's like one way. So I think that that's really good. And then I think using social media is a great free way to promote your stuff. And so, be aware of what you can and can't do. So I know like some groups don't allow you, like you may have like a local yard sale group or something like that, where some of them like don't allow you to like market like a business, like you can only do. So like follow those rules and everything and stuff, but find some groups that you can get into. And I think like if you can build your community, like get your friends and family talking about it, get them sharing about it. And like just starting out, I feel like that's the best way to do it is you just have to not be afraid to pat yourself on the back a little bit and just be like, hey, I made this and it's really awesome and it's really cool. I love the way this turned out. Oh my gosh, I love how glitter looks with this color. Like there are so many different things you can talk about, like, oh, I made this for the homecoming game, or, oh, I made this for all of the teachers in our, first grade wing, or, just things like that. And then I think the other thing that is a great way to do it is if you can get your customers talking about it. And so, like I know a lot of people do like a share to your social and get like a whatever type coupon on your next order. Make sure you tag us. We love to share things. So tag us in your posts, things like that. Some people really love that. Like I know a couple of people that like share everything because they love when companies reshare their stuff. They just think it's really cool. And so, so I think that that's another way. I just think if you are, kind of loud and proud about what you're doing, that helps other people be loud and proud about what you're doing and how cool they think it is.
I would make it easy for them to remember you so they can do those things. So with HTV, add a tag in the back of the shirt with your business name, maybe your website address, few care instructions. And that way, when they're wearing it and someone says, hey, that shirt is awesome. Where did you get that shirt? Oh, it's that girl. Oh, wait a second. It's right here. It's in the back. Read it off my tag. I've done that. I don't know how many times. Read it off the tag and go to that website.
For sure. That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
All right. So if you are joining us for the YouTube Live, if you have questions about using HTV for a business, ask those in that comment section now. So we're going to wrap this up with question number 8 here, and then we're going to start pulling some of those relevant questions from that comment section. So head on over to that live chat and ask us any questions that you have. But our last question, this is a good one. Are there any current trends in the HTV market that new entrepreneurs should be aware of? And how can they find those and find a niche?
So I think one of the trends, I think we've talked about this before, but one of the trends is using HTV along with other mediums. And so using HTV to kind of like add accents to like a sublimation. So HTV is pressed at a much lower temperature than like sublimation is. And so you can add like a glittered, whatever, a glittered star, a glittered sun, whatever you might want to. So you can have that multicolored, cool design and then have pops of texture with the foils, the glitters, things like that. I think that's really cool. And I feel like that's something that I'm seeing more of, is that people are like doing those two things together. I haven't ever even thought about, like, you guys would probably know better if you could pair it with DTF or white toner.
You can. We have.
See, there you go. They've tested
it. Yeah, we did it at we were somewhere. Heat Transfer
Warehouse. Yeah.
Yeah. So we were at Heat Transfer Warehouse and we paired it with DTF, and it's a great way to add metallic accents. You can add puff with it. You could, add some glitter like you were saying, but those specialty HTVs. And I feel like the specialty HTVs alone are kind of a trend and are always trending, like these new crazy things coming out. Puff, super puff, like all these different things that I see. So I feel like all of those are a trend, and combining the trends is almost something that I see. So combining, like you said, different mediums, but also just like a glitter HTV. Have you seen the shirts where they're like glitter HTV and foil and puff, and they put them all like, the same word, but in a line with all the different HTVs, and they're so cool. So combining those, and then I am gonna give a shout out to Jamila, and it's J Stewart's Laboratory. Is that right? The YouTube channel. She combines, it was HTV with embroidery.
I was just going to mention that because it's so good.
It is the best thing I have ever seen in person, and I hope she has a YouTube video on how to do it. If you have an embroidery machine, combine, like, this is your calling. Combine HTV with embroidery, because that is some amazing, amazing stuff. And it's so unique, right? When you combine those two things, and it leaves an impression when someone sees it. And I feel like combining the things gets the super unique look that gets people talking about you naturally, and will just grow your business that way.
Yeah,
I feel like we still see a lot for another trend. I think we're still seeing a lot of HTV on wood. I feel like that's still very trendy, especially if you have that sort of Joanna Gaines, I don't know what to call it anymore. Country chic style. I don't know. I'm sure there's a better word for it. But I'm still seeing, I mean, at the craft fair that I did a couple of weeks ago, there were like 3 vendors still making signs, and I saw people carrying them all around. People love a welcome sign for their front door. Those big round welcome signs and it's so much easier to do HTV on wood than it is vinyl. And it's so much easier than stenciling. So it's a good option, crisp edges, faster than either other option. So HTV on wood is another place I feel like is still going to be trending for a long time to come.
I feel like the other thing that I'm seeing pop up recently, again, like I feel like 4 years ago I was seeing them everywhere, and now all of a sudden I'm seeing them again, are the banner pennant type, like, you know, like little flag things and stuff. I feel like all of a sudden those are coming back again, like with the little tassels and stuff hanging on them. It feels like they had a moment kind of like pre-COVID, and then they like stopped, and now I'm like seeing them pop up again everywhere and stuff, and they're really cute. But as far as like finding your niche, I think you have to love what you're doing. Like, it is zero fun to make a bunch of shirts for maybe like the local school if you don't have kids in the local school. You know, like you might be like, no, I just actually, what's fun to me is just using HTV, and I'm cool with that. But I think that if you can find, like you guys have talked about it like a billion times, like what can make you money and what you love, and get them to overlap there somewhere. And so, and I think you can get pretty specific there, finding a niche, and then find your people, right? Like they will come to you and they will be excited about what you're offering and stuff. And so if you love hiking, you love crafting, and you love hiking, combine those two things and make some really cool hiking shirts or hats, or, you know, all of those different things, labels to put onto your bags, or, you know, whatever it is. I think that finding a niche is something like you should be looking into yourself of what you love and what you know, maybe has helped you or is beneficial to you and stuff. And then find those people instead of trying to go find what people are looking for. Because if you're doing that, there's probably like 900,000 other people that are doing it, you know, and then.
You made me really want to start a crafting and hiking business, because I love both of those things. And now my wheels are turning, and like I need like a 4th or 5th business over here. But that just sounds so fun, like catering to all the hiking people, all the outdoorsy folks that I have up here in Washington.
We just need to have like a little cabin that you can come and you can craft at, but then there's like cool hiking trails all around it. So you can just
Sold.
Let's do it.
I'm quitting this job. Bye, guys. I'm going to go do that now.
We'll host a yearly event and invite all of our crafters and hikers to come.
A very specific market, but I know some of you would come.
Oh,
It's under the camping brand though, so you're good.
Oh, perfect.
Camps.
Under the camping
It
brand.
fits under crafting camps. You're fine.
Perfect.
There you go. An in-person crafting camp. We got it.
But we're actually camping, guys.
Well,
all right. So we are going to take questions. I know there are a couple questions over there in the comments, but while Angie kind of gathers those questions, let's talk about our Cricut Craft Kit. So we launched our first Cricut Craft Kit. This is underneath our Crafting Camps label for me and Angie. And it is almost over. We have 5 days left. It's been up for 3 weeks. We have gathered together 15 different Cricut content creators and basically made a super mega awesome bundle. That's what we should have called it, the super mega awesome bundle. We're calling that the kit. And so basically it is $1,000, over $1,000 worth of Cricut resources and files, e-courses, cheat sheets, SVG files, fonts, all sorts of stuff for $29. And it's only available through the 5th. After that, it's not available anymore. It is amazing. There's more than 30 resources all in one place. You download it from the same place you go to our camps. So if you already have a Crafting Camps Teachable account, it's so easy to access. Plus, you get lifetime access to everything that you download. So it's up for, I don't know how long we have it up for, like 6 months, I think.
I think so.
If you download it, it's yours forever. Like we're not cutting you off. You just need to get it on your hard drive, and then it is yours forever. So if you would like to get that, Angie has put our link below. It's just cricutcraftkit.com. She also has the QR code if you are, I never point the right way on YouTube. It also has the QR code if you are on the YouTube video. And we also have a link down in the podcast notes as well. It is such a good little deal. $29, $1,000 worth of resources. It's just I don't know. It's an awesome little kit.
Yeah, so don't miss it. I feel like we're gonna have people that are like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe I missed it on August 6th." So August 5th, it ends. Buy it.
Get it now.
Get it now. Get all those goodies. All right, question time. The first one was, does the temperature you store HTV affect how well the adhesive maintains its stickiness? So basically, any storage advice.
I think it should say on your stuff. I think most of them are just kind of like a room temperature situation. You wouldn't want to put it like in a tote in your garage where it's going to get super hot in the summer and then freeze in the winter. So yeah, I definitely think it will impact it if it's out and stuff. If it's inside your house, I don't think you should have to worry about it. It's just, they do have a shelf life. I'm still trying to like test and see if I can be like, okay, I have this HTV and it's 3 years old and it really doesn't work anymore. I haven't run into that yet. So, and I've got some up there that's been around for a hot minute.
I would say I'll just add not in direct sunlight.
Mm.
Because it will definitely fade it and just be horrible. Don't store anything in direct sunlight. Keep it away from your windows.
Yes.
I have huge windows in my craft room. Mom is like, everything has to be away from these. Yeah, so store everything away from those huge windows and things. I would just add that.
The other thing that I would add, and this really doesn't have to do with like the temperature, but it does have to do with storing. Label it if you take it out of the package.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Oh, I can't believe we didn't like actually talk about this. So I have had to learn like some tricks about like, I've learned that like Sport Flex, like if you look at the back of it, it kind of looks almost like bubbly, like the thing isn't like sealed on it completely. It is, but anyway, save yourself some stress. The worst thing that you want, like that can happen, is for you to be like, oh, I know I have some black HTV here. And then you pull it out. At least with the Cricut brand, there is nothing. So you have your clear carrier sheet and the adhesive back, and that's it. There is no label on it once you take it out of the packaging. And I kind of feel like that's the same with other brands. I don't think I've opened any that's like, oh, this is very clear what it is after I open it. So
yeah, with regular vinyl, they'll print it on the back a lot of the time, but you can't with a clear carrier sheet. So I made my boys, this is a funny story. I made my boys shirts a while back. They were twin shirts, I think, and made the shirts, thought it was white HTV. It was glow in the dark. I had no idea. They go to bed, shut the lights off. Mom, Mom, our shirts are glowing. I was like, should have labeled that better. Because white HTV and glow in the dark HTV look identical. There's like, I mean, absolutely no difference. So just label it, because now my boys have glow in the dark t-shirts, which is fine for them. But if I needed it in another project, I wouldn't have been able to find it.
Okay.
I am horrible at labeling.
I'm still here. I don't know if they're still here. So give them just a second. It says reconnecting.
Oh, I think that's
Jen. I think it's you.
Oh, it's telling me, guys.
It's you,
we will cut this part out of the podcast, everyone. Don't worry. Are we all good now?
Yeah, I think we're all back.
Okay, we're good.
Okay. I think it was you, because like we were fine. And you were frozen a minute.
I couldn't see either one of you. You were both frozen to me.
Yeah, I think it was you. Okay.
All right. We'll just cut that part out.
I was going to say, I am horrible at labeling my HTV, especially the scraps. It's so bad. I need to be more organized, but I have seen people that are organized that have like a binder and they put the label on the plastic pocket that's in the binder. They put the label on it, and then they put all of that type in that pocket. If you are that person, I am so happy for you. I am not, but that is one tip to organize those HTV scraps and keep them all separate. And the Sport Flex specifically, it doesn't stick well to the Cricut mat for me. So if I ever pull out my scraps and I'm like, this isn't sticking, I'm like, that's Sport Flex.
Same thing. You cannot get, I have to tape that stuff down.
I will say, if you are that organized person, business idea, create the binder thing for us so we can just order it from you. And then we can...
Ooh, okay. Third business idea or whatever for today. We're adding that under crafting. We're going to put that under crafting camps. Oh, nobody else have that idea.
And someone in the comments mentioned slap bracelets for rolls, and that's an amazing idea. I use them to like hold the rolls together, and you can actually just put vinyl on them or write on them with a marker like what it is, and then slap it around, like several rolls of it. Just kind of roll them together and slap it around for like, so you know what it is once you pull it out. You know, all of these things are great to do, and I'm always like, what kind of HTV would this be?
It's like Russian roulette over here for my for my HTV. I'm like, pretty sure this will work. Let's see. But I'm also not running a business where I'm selling things made with HTV. That's one of the, so for me, it's, I'm going to make a project for my kids, or I'm going to show you how to do something in a video or something like that, where if I mess up, it's not the end of the world, and it doesn't affect my bottom line as much.
All right, I feel like this is a good question as well. Should we be washing shirts that aren't pre-shrunk for HTV before you put the HTV on them? So is there any at point and where you need to like wash it first?
So I would say yes. I know that like people are like kind of like they think about that a lot, about like, oh, well, but then it's not new anymore when I'm selling it. And there may be, I have not dove into that. There may be some sort of like resale, something that you have to like specify that you did it. But if you're washing it first because it's not pre-shrunk, you're gonna want to wash it in whatever temperature that you are recommending that they wash it in, right? So if you're telling them to wash it in cold water, you may not need to, because it shouldn't really be shrinking that much, but I probably would anyway. And it can also help your adhesive stick better. Like we talked about earlier, where sometimes you can run into it like not sticking. I will just throw out like a couple of brands that I've had zero problems with. I didn't even look at the tag to see if they are pre-shrunk. I think Bella Canvas, everything is pre-shrunk, right? Because the way they do their stuff. But I've had pretty decent success with that, like, I think it's Next Level brand. They may also be pre-shrunk. I don't know. I am like the weird, odd person. You guys are both going to like laugh, but I personally love the little bit more stiff shirts, that Gildan brand, whatever. I like that, like slightly more structured. But because of them being like a little bit stiffer, I would say that is a brand I would wash first, because I feel like they could potentially shrink. The other thing, even shrinking aside, that washing does, I feel like, is it helps you realize if a shirt is going to have any twist to it. So I don't know if you've ever had a shirt where you're like using a shirt maybe that you already owned, and you're like, oh, I'm going to put some HTV on this. And then you like fold it in half and you get the center perfect and everything laid out. And then you press it and then you go to put it on and it's like ski wampus a little bit. Because shirts, like if they're not the most well-made shirts, they can twist a little bit, like when they're washed, those fiber, like your seams aren't quite right. And so I think washing also helps with that, because like if you hold it up after you washed it and you're like, okay, everything's, like what I thought was center on that tag is now not center anymore. And I just kind of follow the natural lay of the shirt. I don't try to force it back straight, because it's not going to be when somebody puts it on, if that makes sense. And I think that's even for like your own, like if you're just doing it for your own shirt.
I think also you could always just do a test, right? Okay, so I got this new brand of shirt. I'm going to wash it and compare it to a brand new shirt. Is it significantly smaller? Is it about the same? That sort of thing. So if, say, you get two Bella Canvas shirts, wash one and then compare it to the brand new one and see, oh, the difference here is minimal. I'm not going to worry about washing it, because when you wash it, you also have, that takes your time, and you need to, it also takes more money because you're spending water and detergent. And then you also have to iron it, because nobody wants wrinkly shirts, especially if you're air drying them. So definitely do a test. I wouldn't necessarily say, yes, pre-wash everything, because if you don't need to, don't. Like, I am all about not doing extra work.
Yeah, but you do, if it's 100% cotton and it does not say pre-shrunk, you definitely want to test it, because that, if it shrinks, it can cause really weird puckering in your HTV, like, because it's the fabric's trying to pull away from the adhesive holding it into place, and it's not cute.
Not cute.
So I will say, when you find that shirt, that pre-shrunk shirt, it works amazingly, stick with that brand. And stick with high quality shirts for business purposes. And that way it'll save you a ton of headaches in the future. Like, this brand works, that it works every time, your customers love it. Just stick with it, repeat that process. And that way you'll save yourself a ton of headaches, a ton of like test cycles of various brands. So just stick with the same brand. And we are always fans of Bella Canvas, Corey and I. So I will say, I've never had issues with their shirts. I just pull it out, I put the HTV on, never an issue. I feel like those brands that are made for crafting are the ones that I stick to, just because of those issues. So I don't just go to Walmart. I feel like that's where the sizing issue comes in when you go to those stores. Like you go to Walmart, you go to Target, and you purchase just the shirts that they have on the shelf. They a lot of times put that sizing in just so it looks better in store. And that's where you run into issues.
I will make sure and go ahead and update both the podcast notes as well as the YouTube description with the Bella Canvas Makers program link so that we can make sure that if you want to join that program, which is free, by the way, it is completely free. There is no reason not to join it. You can go ahead and join it and get a better deal on those shirts.
The other thing that I will say about sticking with a well-known brand like that is that people know their size. And then you're not stressing about like somebody being like, I normally wear this. What would I wear in this? Obviously, you can do that with like your own family member, right? Like you can just be like, yes, this fits you. You can wear this shirt. Wear it. That's what happens at my house a lot. But, like Bella Canvas specifically does a great job with having size charts everywhere. And they run pretty consistent, like style after style after style. And so that makes it just easier for your customers to know what size they should be ordering when they're just like, oh, I know what I am in that shirt.
Right.
And don't be afraid to share that information. I feel like some people find a good shirt and they're like, I'm like keeping this locked behind doors, and like tell your customers like, I'm using this type of shirt. So if they, like they know that they like that shirt, if that makes sense. So.
Absolutely. All right. Are those all of our questions?
That's all I see.
All right, Jen, thank you so much for coming on today. We love chatting with you both Tuesday and today. Please make sure to check out Jen's YouTube at the Creative Housewives. Check her out on Instagram at the Crafty Housewives. I got that right?
Yes.
Awesome.
All right. And if you love this episode, we have an episode in 2 weeks as well. So be sure to tune in 2 weeks. And we'll be chatting with Beth Eaton from the Ruffled Daisy. And we're going to talk about building a craft business that reflects your values. And I feel like that's a very important topic and will be very, very interesting. And it'll be live on YouTube on August 15th or on your favorite podcast network on August 19th. And if you're like, that's a lot of dates, drop down below the video or in the podcast notes and sign up for our newsletter. And we will send you reminders.
And of course, don't forget to share this. If you have a friend who makes really great shirts and she's like, maybe I want to start a HTV business, send this along to her because she needs to know everything we talked about in this episode. And of course, if you have a chance, please leave us ratings, reviews, all of those things. They are crucial to our success. I mean, our podcast will be shown to more people if more people rate it.